let's talk to an atheist caller. We've got Charles in Florida. Charles, you wanted to talk about why theists. Hey, good. You wanted to talk about why theists are so confident that they have evidence for God.
Well, not quite. Not quite.
Okay.
It's a question that often occurs to me as a lifelong atheist. And this goes to, like, you're now asking theists to consider that God wants them to call. Why do people who, in their view, possess ultimate knowledge, they possess a book written by an omnipotent God, and then also are confident that they're going to be spending eternity with this being in some sort of paradise, why do they bother with us? Why do they call you to argue with you? And why do we upset them so much? Because my feeling would be, if I had this information, I wouldn't really be concerning myself. Now, I know there's a theistic argument or a theological argument about they've got to come try to save me, but I don't really think that's what's motivating them. My hypothesis is it's just social proof. They're the stewards of this house of cards, and any objection to it, if it grows, will just blow it over. And they understand that, so they have to try to squash us as much as they can.
There's some kind of interesting ideas out there about how religions perform like living organisms. Dan Dennett had a book called Breaking the Spell, Religion as the Natural Phenomenon, I think was what it was called, where he talks about how you can look at the evolution of religions and how there are built-in survival mechanisms, how some religions proliferate and some don't, just like if we were looking at like viruses of the mind. Which I also, if I'm going to talk about Dan Dennett, I got to talk about Darrell Ray's got a book, the God Virus, that's also worth checking out if you're into this kind of thing. So I think that when you look at, especially like Christianity, there is a built-in, there's a great commission. There's a mandate from God to go forth and make disciples of all nations, right? That's built into the theology for the world's biggest religion. Whether it makes sense or not, Christians are commanded to go out and proselytize. So I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, well, I would add
motivating most callers. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. There's a delay, so that happens. But so I would say there's an appeal to religious claims in the fact that it provides you an essence of certainty, right? I mean, like, people are very uncomfortable not knowing the answers. And so once you lack the starting framework of some epistemic humility, and having some humility in what you know and what you don't know, some people, they're coming from a position of certainty, growing up in a position of certainty. Like, if you had talked to them in any philosophical sense of if you really sat down and tried to break these things down, and what you know and how you know it, it really, for me, it's always shined a light that this is something that's just been instilled, like, to have certainty. And it's never like truth only means truth to them in the aspects of certainty, right? So when you tell someone like science doesn't make proclamations of truth, it makes models of our understanding, that's like a foreign aspect of truth to them because it has to be absolutely certain. And so there's just this lack of epistemic humility that, hey, we're going to try to model the reality we share, knowing it's tenable and that things are going to change. And so you really, from my perspective, it seems that that's just the appeal of religious claims in the first place, that they can go the extra step to have confidence in saying that they know, because it's just not satisfying. And then from the people that have just started from that position, it just seems that they don't know any better until we have these conversations with people.
Yeah. And in this realm, in this way of thinking, certainty doesn't have anything to do. There's no relationship at all between certainty and knowledge. You don't have to have evidence in the way that any of us, I mean, okay, so if we're talking about evidence being something you can use to demonstrate the truth of a claim, you don't have to have that if you're appealing to faith. The faith is the evidence, according to Hebrews. Faith is the evidence of things not seen. And you'll hear Christians, and I know we're just picking on the Christians right now, they'll repeat this verse. I've run into Christians who will say that they think it's sinful to appeal to evidence because they're told to walk by faith.
There's a verse. It's Proverbs 3. It's trust in the Lord with all your heart and
Lean not on your
own understanding.
Yep.
You know, it's a direct commandment to not reason, right? To not apply logical inferences, to ignore demonstrable evidence to the contrary.
And this is a built-in defense mechanism to the organism of Christian belief. We're insulating ourselves as Christians against doubt, against skepticism, by appealing to these verses. Yeah. If you accept the Bible as true and then take on the theology and take on the dogmas, then you are insulated from having to appeal to evidence. You don't have to go there, and you still you get to enjoy all the certainty that your little heart desires.
I always find the William Lane Craigs and the Frank Turek's to be so amusing with all their sort of puerile and fourth grade interpretations of science that they say proves the Bible, which is so ridiculous. Sure. But
especially from a cosmological standpoint.
Oh yeah, of course. Nothing from something from nothing nonsense. But you know, just bringing up the Dan Dennett analogy of a virus, that's so appropriate for the times we live in. And it actually makes sense to me more in what I'm thinking about, because in some sense, what you do is like the vaccine. That's why I love your show, and I love you guys particularly. I think you're a great host. It's like a vaccine.
We love you too.
For this virus. And thank you. And they I think recognize that. I think they recognize the threat, that the vaccine is just the logic and rationality and just the presence of people who are vocal and expressing this idea that, there's no evidence for what you're saying. It's on a rational basis. I can't believe it because there's no reason to. That's a powerful vaccine for what they're doing. And in other places in the world, it's worked. There are countries in the world where you have majorities of atheists, and life tends to be a lot better there, just as an aside also. So I appreciate your thoughts on the subject. It actually added something to my thinking.
Well, I'll tell you, we have a theist who has just popped into the queue here, who may have some responses to this. So, Charles, thank you for your call. We're going to move on.